Hi, and welcome to It's the Heart Work, People, Passion, and Purpose podcast. And I'm your host, Dr. Terry Ross. This podcast is about people finding their passion and walking into their purpose. And our goal is to help people live the extraordinary life that they dream of. And today I have with us a guest, Dr. Kelvin Smith, who's a father, husband, author, and educator. Those are just a few of the hats that he's worn over the years. And we're excited to have him with us today because he has written several books. His current book is Daddy Moments 3, the Twins Edition. And I'm so excited as I talked with him about this book, and he told me how his concept started and kind of where he came from. It just really warmed my heart because being a father is hard work. And so often people feel like, okay, dad is just dad. Well, dad is the anchor of the household. Dad brings the security to the household, and dads matter. So, fathers, this podcast is for you. We want you to know that we celebrate you and that you matter and that we know that you are here and more than just as a protector and a provider because we are nurturers. So, Dr. Smith, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to you. If you will introduce yourself to us and just let us know about yourself and how did you come to where you are now.
Good morning, all. Thank you for allowing me to be on the show. My name is Dr. Kelvin Smith. One thing I like to tell everybody that I am an only child. I was born in Chicago, but I was sent down to Mississippi, small town called Yazoo City, Mississippi, to my grandmother and aunt after 6 months. My mother decided she wanted me to be raised in a safer environment. So I'm more so a Mississippian than I can say Chicago native. I do have family in both states, and I do keep up with everybody. By me being raised by my grandmother, my aunt, a lot of my cousins ended up becoming my siblings. At one point in time, like I tell anybody, my upbringing was very unique. We were poor, say the least. Grew up in a 3-bedroom apartment, had about 12 people to live in there with us at one point in time. So I know everything about struggles growing up as a kid. So I didn't typically have a traditional background of having mom and dad in the house together, but I still had so much love and support that I didn't know any difference. Um, I graduated from high school in 1996. I was blessed on a football scholarship, and I tell a lot of people I only played 1 year high school football. My family were known athletes in our little town in Yazoo City, but more so for basketball. I looked up and was blessed, like I tell everybody, blessed to play 1 year high school football and was able to get a scholarship from it. I went to college at Alabama A&M University in Huntsville,
Okay.
Alabama. Lettered there in football for 4 years. Graduated from there in 2000 and just thought I was going to jump into the work world in broadcasting with my degree. Come to find out, and I tell a lot of people that's when I truly learned. I always have a B plan. When I tried to get into my field, they had a hiring freeze in the area I was in and had to come up with a plan B. I have a family full of educators, retired principals, and teachers. Everybody really thought that I was going to end up becoming a teacher and educator, and I tried my best to steer from it. But, everything falls in destiny. God's plan, God's will. I ended up sub-teaching for an entire year at an alternative school. I was approached by a couple of people at the board and my principal that saw a lot of potential in me. And they basically taught me to going back to school and getting my alternative teaching certificate. And I actually did that in a short amount of time. And from that point on, I spent 12 years in Birmingham, Alabama, teaching and coaching. Most people are shocked when I tell them I was an English teacher for my entire career. So I taught English, and that was one thing I could always brag about in the state of Alabama and Georgia. I was one of 2 English teachers to be a head football coach and a head softball coach at the same time. Moved over to Georgia in 2015, and I've been here for the last 8 years in this state, where I concluded teaching and coaching, being an athletic director as well, and I've been an administrator for the last 4 years. So I basically have went around the world in so many ways, being a jack of all trades. And I tell a lot of people that my growth and experience really helped transform me. But really the teaching of what my grandmother and my aunt instilled in me, also with the support of my rest of my family, my aunts and uncles, and my mother really helped create the person I am today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Smith, for sharing that. Where did you teach in Birmingham?
Multiple schools. I was a head coach at Jackson Olin High School for a year. I taught at Fairfield High Preparatory School for 3 years. Bessemer City High School, I did 2 tours, as I like to say. I did 4 years when it was just Lanier, and then I went back when they changed it to Bessemer City High School for 4 years.
I started teaching at A.H. Parker High School.
I know that school very well. Every school I've been at, I had a coach against it in some shape, form, or fashion. I can honestly say I have not had a great winning record when it came up to Parker.
Yes,
Tradition
A.H.
there,
Parker.
yeah,
And my
tradition
wife
there
was
runs
an
deep.
English teacher at Jackson Olin. So, Dr. Smith, again, thank you for joining us today and thank you for sharing your story so far. So, tell me, what inspired you to write Daddy Moments?
Uh, Daddy moment started out more so as something I wanted to do for my first daughter, Kaden. Uh, Being a new dad and me not having a dad growing up in my life, I wanted to give her something that she can look back on. And the plan was just me basically just journaling different things that happen every day because from a father perspective, I wasn't trying to write a book that was like a daddy's book for dummies. It was just more so a realistic book. Me talking about uh, changing the diapers for the first time. Me talking about going to the doctor and seeing her get shots at 3 months. Me going through pregnancy, trying to see how to navigate being a teacher, a coach, dad to be. Because, like I tell a lot of people, that was a traumatizing situation. Being a football coach on Friday night and having to keep a phone on you and be prepared just in case you get a phone call saying your wife going into labor. Um,
Absolutely.
it was something that started out as I wanted to share my insight. I did it a couple times on Facebook, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's hilarious," or "Oh, I remember when something like this happened to me," and everybody started encouraging me to start talking about it more day to day. So I continued, and at one point in time, I was asked to blog it, but like I told them, I didn't have time between education, career, family. It's hard to put in that type of time, but I didn't mind just sharing little tidbits of what may go on throughout the day. And after a while, something had just finally dawned on me, let me write a book. And what I wanted to do was just give it to her when she turned 18. But after I wrote the book and I had several family members read over it, they say, you need to publish this. This is
Yes.
something that the world need to see, not more so for money purposes or anything like that. Anybody that reads the book, they get an idea of I've been there before. Also, you seen that or you've been through that too. So I want to make it just something common to where we
Yes.
all can relate, no matter a father, a mother, grandparent. I just want to make something relatable to anybody.
That's awesome. And I appreciate you taking the time out to do that. And now I have a better understanding with you saying that you were an English teacher, because one of the first thing English teachers will say to their students is journal sometimes and learn
Right.
how to journal. And I'm sure that you've had a great impact on the young men in your life with that because representation matters.
I agree because honestly, I one thing I try to do is I try to make sure that I reached out to every student I ever taught, but especially for my young males that may have not had a father, may not been so-called in a traditional background like myself. I've always been that father figure for them
Yes.
because if I wasn't there, I don't think some of the ones that I've reached out to, they may not have been where they've been currently at right now. I still remember the first kid I helped get a football scholarship for. I remember the first kid I got an academic scholarship for. I remember the first kid that I helped just sign up and go to college. And that's just from the male aspect. But overall, from either way, male and female, I've done many great things. I've taught students that have been who now are dentists, lawyers, doctors, teachers. So it's just the fact that I feel like I've done something that I wanted to have with me is be a village. I had so many people be a village with me growing up. I felt like me being an educated elder, at least I can do giving back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, your oldest child is how old now?
My oldest child from the book, she is 9 now.
Okay.
And
Has she read anything from the book or have you shared anything with her?
I gave her when I first when I first published it. I wrote her a special message for the book, and I gave it to her on Christmas that same year. So
Okay.
she had something for herself, and she actually read it, and she giggled herself because I used the term "boom boom pow" a lot in that book,
Mhm.
describing her diapers. So she was amazed that her diapers were related to that being a boom boom pow. And I said that was the only way I could think of how to describe the type of diapers I had to change with you growing up. She had a lot of questions like, I can't believe this happened. This is what you went through, waiting on me to come into the world. Yes, baby. All those things are actual factual information. Even my responses, I try to keep my responses as genuine as possible because I never wanted no one to look at it. Any of my journals that I put on social media, I pulled them straight off there and put it right in the book. And then I just added deeper thought process into it so you understand where that statement came from for that particular day.
Absolutely. And I think that most fathers are shocked when they start changing those diapers. That
Uh,
something so cute and so small can make
man,
such a large fuss.
just saying, wow, that came out of this person
Right.
is the most amazing part of when she read that book, because she was just so shocked that I was describing her and still making it funny to where she can understand and see the whole picture. And that's how I try to write the book, to where you almost can see out the image in your own mind as you read it. So you kind of can see my struggle. You see my facial expression. Because if
Absolutely.
you're a parent, you probably went through the same type of situation as well. You just didn't think to write it down.
Absolutely. And the first time that you change that diaper and you're running out of the house and you just take it and drop it in the garbage can and forget about it
Uh,
until you walk back in.
and I almost passed out the first time, because I just,
Yes.
like I said, a newborn, that is
Yes.
the most unique smell, most unique look. And depending on how fast you can get it off and put the next one on, you have to move quick. That's almost like being
Absolutely.
a NASCAR worker.
Absolutely. And just those moments alone, we look back on them, and that my wife and I, we still look back and laugh at the times that we changed her and certain things happened, and how I ran across the room one time, and, just little things like that. So thank you so much for thinking enough of those moments to journal them. Do you mind sharing something with us out of that first book?
Yes, sir. So one of the easiest things, and like I was talking about, a boom, boom, pow. So one thing about it, I've always, in my books, I try to journal it. And this is a copy of the first edition, Daddy Moments, Volume 1.
Yes.
My first year being a dad, um, November 8th, 2013, Daddy Moments. So to help out more around the house, I told my wife that I would take more responsibility with changing Caden's diapers, AKA a boom, boom, pow diaper. I think I set myself up. All her Pampers have been grown and smell like a grown person at the same time. So also, the name Boom Boom Pow came from the sound and experience I had with Caden's first dozen diaper changes. I knew when she had one from the sound, the smell, and her smile of relief when sitting in my lap or curled my arm. The name basically breaks down into three easy parts. The first boom was the sound. The second boom was when you open the diaper, and the pow was always the smell. So she got a kick out of that in itself, that I even had enough sense to give it coin it a term, and then able to break it down in the book and explain it so well. So when she hear me say boom, boom, pow, she automatically know I'm referring to her.
And it helps us to have a whole lot more respect for what moms go through
Yes, sir. And
on
I
a
definitely did
continuous
that.
basis.
In every book, I've always gave my shout out and love and support, because that's a lot for a woman to go through for pregnancy. That's a lot for a woman to go through and have to deal with us as a dad, because sometimes our brain kind of clicks off during the process of the arrival, and especially the first few months, just getting adjusted to being a dad and trying to navigate through how to help out and when to do things the right way. We're gonna make mistakes, and that's one thing I always try to preach in all my books, and just me being a parent. That's a part of life. You being a parent, you are gonna make mistakes. That's how you grow. There's no perfect parent. No one just comes into the world saying, I know how to do this as a parent. You have to grow by mistakes and learning how to still navigate the world.
Absolutely. Mm. In those daddy moments, for me, I signed up with Pampers.
Mm-hmm.
You would get the coupons, but they would
Right.
also send you these little things like at 3 months, your child should be this, or these are things that you can work on with them. I grew up in a household with my mom was a teacher in Head Start. My sister was a special ed teacher. My neighbors lived around me. They were all teachers. However, all of that still doesn't prepare us for being a parent.
Correct. I
And we
absolutely agree.
and with all and I grew up in the home with my mom and dad. Now my dad worked away from home because growing up in the small town I grew up in the Mississippi Delta, there was really no place to work. So he was a construction worker, and so he basically came home on weekends. And he worked in
Okay.
Louisiana, Texas, Arkansas, everywhere he drove to work. However, I still had that father. I knew every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday he was going to be home, the Christmas holidays, all holidays, and things like that. And if it rained or snowed, but that still didn't prepare me for what it took to be a father, because one of the things that we saw as a father growing up, that we were again providers and protectors. I don't think I was prepared for that nurturing role because as dads, we want to fix things and make it happen. Well,
Right.
having to step in with that nurturing role, I had to seek other help for that. And I had to look other places to learn some of those things like child development books. Early child, I would talk to at the time. My daughter was born when became a principal at an elementary school the year she was born. So the kindergarten teachers and the preschool teachers, they were my resource for a lot of things. I watched what they did. And my wife was a high school English teacher. So I would bring home a lot of things that I saw in kindergarten and preschool to help us out. What are some of the things that you did to help you figure out those things as you move into fatherhood?
Like I said, a great thing. I grew up around my grandmother, aunts, and I tell a lot of people I was more so raised by women. Um, the nurturing part I did gain from them, so that was a lot. That was a lot easier in helping that. But I do give a lot of credit when I started coaching. I was so used to coaching football, male sports. I was approached by one of my assistant principals probably in about 2008, and I was asked to coach a softball team. I, I that's scared me more so because I didn't think myself, who's this guy that played college football, who been around a lot of guys throughout my life. Yes, I was raised by women, but I've never been in charge of doing anything with
Yes.
young female athletes. And I was asked to do that. I was so terrified, but I think that helped me in the long run because my first ever softball team, that entire team basically taught me how to be a father because I dealt with so many personalities, so many different emotions, and understood so many different backgrounds. Majority, all of them still keep up with me to this day. I've never changed my cell phone from the moment I started teaching. And I do that for the sole reason of if anyone ever needed to talk to me as an adult for advice or whatever, they can reach me no matter what. Yes, you have so many type of social media platforms, but a cell phone still goes a long way. So I really learned how to become a father based with my first softball team at Fairfield High School. Most of those young ladies, they still laugh because I approached it in a different way to where I try to almost coach them like guys. And then I had to take a step back because they still try to play like guys, but they wasn't. So when I finally just started to curve myself and just showing a lighter side of me and started learning them better, that went a long, long way in helping me build myself as a person. So where when I started having girls, it terrified me, but I also knew how to approach it a little better. And
Yes.
then just dealing with so many, being a role model for being a male in the education field, it's rare to see males, especially black males. We are running rare. So many kids will gravitate towards me as if I was their father, and I have to
Mhm.
almost still give out to them like I was their dad because for most of them, their dad wasn't at home. So I
Mhm.
understood that that also helped me growing up as an educator, and prepare me to be a parent overall for my kids because I had to basically be a parent for so many others for so long.
It's amazing how girls change us.
Right.
That
I
we
agree.
learn so much, and I want men to understand the power of feminine energy and the power of making sure that woman and that female in your life is there as an equal partner, because
Right.
my wife really helped when my daughter was a teenager. So I dealt with girls, in the elementary school. My first principal job was middle school. So I had some experience, but not much. My longevity was in elementary. So when my daughter got into like middle school, again, I was a bit lost. I would say, well, what's wrong with her? She said, oh, nothing. She's fine. 13-year-olds, they'll just go off to themselves sometimes. They don't want to be bothered. They're testing limits and they're figuring out their space in the world. So, and I would say, what's wrong? Because during that phase, those times that we would hang out, she would ride my back. We just go outside and do things. That well, as she became a teenager, some of those things changed, although we still did those things, but maybe not the same way. So I had to adjust. And I can remember my college football coach when I was at Jackson State. his wife, his first child was a daughter, and I can just remember seeing him kind of like change as he said, "I got to go to Lamaze tonight," and we were looking at him because I played offensive line. We was like, "Okay, I'd like to see you in Lamaze being nurturing with the group of
Right.
women." But we watched that change him. So it's amazing that when men lean in with their families and lean in with their children, whether it's daughters or sons, it really does something to us, and it changes our outlook on the world. What advice would you give to a young father that's coming into fatherhood? What would you tell them?
That time is very essential. It's very important. The one thing I tell anybody, one thing you can never recycle is time. So try to appreciate the moments that you have. Uh, Never try to choose anything over, especially as you becoming a new dad. Embrace it. Embrace it with your mate. If it's your wife, your girlfriend, your significant other, embrace it. Make sure you're there for support because you want to try to do things and set the groundwork because that's your legacy. The things you do currently, moving forward, sets the groundwork and the path for your legacy to follow you. So you want to try to do your best and don't be afraid to make a mistake. We all do it. We all went through it and we learn from it. Just don't keep making the same mistakes over again, thinking that you are going to make a change in some point down the road. Always strive to be better than you was the day before.
So tell me about daddy moments too.
Daddy Moments 2. And this is the cover of Daddy Moments 2, Blended Family. Um, and I like to tell everybody, with me not seeing the typical background or seeing the typical parenting situation, um, I had aunts that was married. I had one of my uncles was married, and I saw that growing up. So my mind frame was, once you get married, that's it. I can honestly tell people sometimes it does not happen like that. It's not always a happy ever after. So I'm a person that fully say sometimes it's best if the situation is best that a divorce has to happen and you have children, let the divorce happen. If you want to fight for it, not tell anybody fight for it. But if it has to happen, let it happen. But make sure that you remember that divorce happened between the adults. It didn't happen with that child. That's your child. And the one thing I stressed about it being a blended family, you sometimes go into making another family, be mindful of bringing those two worlds together and how crucial it has to be for both sides to blend in. Because the most unique thing was my current wife right now, like I said, I went back to my hometown and got my current wife. We was high school together. We were in the band together. She knew me from when I was just little. Everybody kind of thought we should have got married, but it didn't work out that way. And like I say, destiny and God's hands played a big part of this.
Yeah.
She went on, got married, did her own thing. I went a different direction, and then we ended up coming back together. She had two other kids from her previous marriage that she adopted. Um, I brought my daughter in, and the one thing that we stressed to everybody was, no matter how much you like each other, if your kids play that deciding piece, does your child like the other person that you're currently dating that you may potentially want to make your mate? And that's the main thing with Daddy Moments 3 Blended Edition. I made a promise to my bonus kids, and I call them like they're my kids. I only say the word bonus no more.
Yes. Yes.
They're mine. They've been mine for the last 5 years. So they know me as dad no matter what. They don't even, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Absolutely.
Once they saw that I wrote a book for Caden, they both walked up to me. They're like, "So when do we get a book?" I said, "You know what? I'm on it right now." Because I was still journaling. It never stopped.
Yes.
So when they came into my life, I still journaled and I started adding them into my journal entry. So many people that came from blended families, I started inspiring them because then I started reaching another group of people, not only just new parents and parents in general. I started hitting on blended families. I started hearing people say, "Well, my stepdad, he treated me just like that. I was just his daughter. That's it. It was no step. It was nothing like that moving forward." And like I try to tell most people, a blended family is a challenging family, but it's one of the most big blessings in the world. And the one thing about it, it teaches you how to co-parent from your previous marriage. It teaches you how to co-parent with your new kids. It teaches you growth, and it teaches you how to move forward. Because for some blended families, they don't need someone just coming in with some brand new rules. They need someone that brings love, a role model figure, direction from another parent perspective. and still just radiating nothing but love onto them. And that's what Daddy Moments 2 basically revolves around. Me blending two new families together, still being a dad, going from being a new dad from one situation going into another situation, and just showing that there is still life after divorce, life after being single, and then moving on to the next. And me giving tidbit of advice of how to navigate from the co-parenting aspect to bringing a new person into your children's lives, because they play the biggest part. If my daughter said she didn't like my current wife, my wife knew that it would be hard for us to date, and it's vice versa. If her kids didn't like me when they first met me, it'd been too hard for us to date because we wouldn't want to put them in an awkward situation. A lot of parents have to understand that priorities take place once you have a child. Your child is your number one priority. You're trying to do what's best for them moving forward to give them the best stability. So when they become adults, they know how to navigate life instead of looking back and saying, well, I saw this when I was growing up, so that must be the norm. No, we want to make sure you have a better norm than what we went through.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that because you've inspired me, and I'm sure that that inspired a lot of people for you to talk about blended families. How did growing up in the home that you grew up in with cousins and aunts and all that, how did that prepare you for a blended family?
Uh, with a unique style and flair. I've had, like I said, my cousins always was running around, never had that true sibling, so it kind of made me adjust. I have two cousins in particular. I have a cousin named Paul. He grew up with me from the moment I got down to Mississippi. He was in the same situation. His mother sent him from Chicago, Mississippi, to my grandmother, and he was older than me. So looking up to him like a big brother. I had a couple of younger cousins that I kind of just looked over them like I was their big brother. So in our little small town, everybody knew us by our grandmother, or they knew us by our aunt. So they kind of all knew we was kind of fixated together. So that kind of helped me adjust with knowing how to make these adjustments with so many different individuals, how to learn how to grow through that world and learn and cope. And with my grandmother helped raising me, my grandmother showed me and taught me so many different things about how to still love on someone that may not be your biological brother or your biological sister, but still show how to love someone. And then she also had that village mentality. The apartment complex we lived in, my next door neighbor, her best friend had about 11 kids. My grandmother had 9. They all grew up together and knew each other very well. So if her best friend saw me acting up, her best friend would grab and snatch a knot at me and then come tell my grandmother snatch a knot at me, and vice versa. So we learn how to love people that may not be necessarily our blood, but still show them same love and respect that they may need to know moving forward to help them better in life.
And I'm listening to you, and you've used the word love so many times. And that's been like just a hallmark of my life and a hallmark of the work that I'm doing now for myself and for my family, that we only recognize one emotion, and that's love. And everything
Right,
outside of that is a derivative of love. If whether it's fear, whether it's hate or whatever, it all stems from love, or something that we want to hold on to, or something that we want to get rid of. And moving in love for me has just like erased all of the other things that I used to feel, like anxiety, fear. So love and gratitude, and you mentioned gratitude a lot too. You mentioned gratitude from the children that you've worked with because you learned from them, but you also mentioned gratitude that they share, that they are continuing to share with you from what you poured into their life. So thank
right,
you for sharing that, and thank you for just really putting the work in for your blended children, for your children from your blended family, because that is so important for everyone to feel like they're a part of and to feel like they belong, because that's what we all want, is to feel like we matter.
right.
Tell me about Daddy Moments 3, the twin
All right,
edition.
Daddy Moments 3 Twins Edition. And I like to joke with everybody because that book was more so unique because when me and my wife decided that we wanted to add on to our blended family, we didn't really think that twins would happen, but twins run in her family. She had 8 other twin sets in her family. My family never had a twin set. So the fact that we were blessed with 2
Yes.
shocked both of us. Um, in this book, I kind of highlight the growth process that I went through from Caden to my blended children of Antoine and Nevaeh, who's 13 or 11, and Caden's now currently 9. So at the time the book was written, they were still fresh, trying to blend into the family, things of that nature. And then, boom, we find out we're pregnant. That was a great thing. I talked about the day that my wife found out that we were having twins when she went to the doctor's office, and they told her based off what my wife actually identified in the ultrasound room that she saw a second person in there in the ultrasound. So she had to call me and make sure I was in my truck because I was getting ready to go to a meeting at the board, and she was like, "Are you sitting down anywhere?" No, why? I need you to sit back in your truck. I just want to let you know the doctor said the babies are fine. What babies? Well, Smith baby A. And I said, who's the other one? Smith baby B. And she said, and I said, you tell me it's a Smith baby C hanging up right now. And she died laughing. So this book basically highlights, and again, I touched another area of parents. I touched a multiple area. And I never would have thought that each book touched a certain unique aspect of parents when I wrote. So I talked about multiples. I talked about the life that they bring to you. A lot of people say, "Oh, I want to have twins and get it out the way." And I'll tell them, "No, you say that now, but keep in mind it's double everything." I would never turn back that page. I would never want to miss that page. They bring just as much joy as our first three did, and how we went about it. The idea of what my wife had to go through her pregnancy. She had to be bed bound from the second month all the way up until it's time for them to be born. And when I say at the time I was working in a different state from her, I made every visit possible, but her family worked together as well to acknowledge her and make sure they take care of her. I talked about a rainbow baby in the book because my wife first child was a rainbow baby, passed away. It was a stillbirth. So she had dreams about, and I talked about it in the beginning of the book, the importance of Langston Hughes talking about dreams. She had a dream about after her first baby, Isaiah, passed away, and we still acknowledge him, especially in this book. Acknowledge him that, what a rainbow baby is, the importance of a rainbow baby. How she talked about how she had visions of having girls. And I told her growing up through my life, I've always had a dream about having daughters or twins. I always had vision about having twins, but I could never see in that dream their sex, but I could always hear them giggle. And I could never see the person that was with me in this dream. It didn't come a little clearer until I got around with my wife. And we kind of just both, when we started sharing our dreams, we just kind of like, nah, that they can't be real. And we found out she was pregnant. And then her grandmother said they both gonna be girls. And we like, huh? How can you tell we haven't even looked yet? They're girls. And that Southern grandmother has spidey sense power that they can look at you and automatically tell just by the way your stomach is sitting, how you may be moving about. They can tell if it's a boy and a girl, or boys, or two girls. And she said, "Oh, I knew off the top, girls." So we shared that in that aspect in this book, and just still giving all 5 of my kids something that they can say, I left a legacy imprint. Something that they can say, my dad did this for me, and it's out there in the world to where at any point in time when they turn 18, I'm giving all the rights and responsibility of the books to them. So they may want to do something with it. They may want to show their kids. They may want to start a book of their own and add on to this. So I'm giving them something different than what most people try to give their children.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we still want to give them financial stability. We still want to give them the keys to know how to become adult. But I still think something as unique as the words I put in these books will help them in life to look back on and say, oh, this is what dad went through, or this is what dad and mom went through, because it gives a better insight of how to move and maneuver better as a parent. So it gives a better sense of, one, you can see the love that we have for our children and the love I have for them. The type of village love that I received and the type of village-like love we're giving to our children, and we hope that they can take on and pass on to their children, and that cycle keeps repeating. That's a true type of generational wealth I want to pass on to make sure that my kids know how to be loved and be great adults and parents, and they can pass that on to the next. That kind of goes on a lot further than financial will ever create.
Absolutely, because with wisdom you can create your own wealth.
Right.
Thank you for sharing that. And that's a whole nother podcast to talk about mother wit from the South, because it's deep, it's research based, and we know it works. If they tell you,
Right,
it's done. And but I'm what I'm really finding out in work that I'm doing now is that we all have that knowing inside of us.
right,
And if we really tap into it, we can get there. And part of what you're doing with this book is helping your children to have that knowing.
right,
With my daughter, I'll say to her sometimes, I told her the other week, I said, I know sometimes you get tired of me just talking about things. I said, but my goal is that when these situations present themselves, you'll hear me. And by then you will have reflected and you will know. And she said, it happens all the time. She said, I'm in situations and she said, I can hear your voice. And then that speaks to me. And then in my knowing, I know what decision to make,
right. And
because
that's the best way.
it's nothing like knowing that you matter and knowing that you don't have to be abused, you don't have to accept people mistreating you. And
Right,
with the world being the way it is now, we really, and we especially have to arm our girls with that knowing for themselves, to know that they matter, to know
right.
that they are loved and that they are light and that they deserve love and they deserve light in their life. So thank you so much for sharing that with us and for sharing your knowledge with the world with your books. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience about Daddy Moments 1, 2, or 3?
Uh, they're all available. You can purchase them as a hard copy, or you can actually read it online. I made it easy. All of them are easy reads because I had to think about parents. Because as much as we will want to say we can carve out time for certain things, depending on the day, is difficult. So I
Yes,
try to make sure my work of art is to a point to where you can read it. It doesn't take you a tremendous amount of time, but I guarantee you, once you get into it, you are going to want to finish it. And the love and the pour back reviews that I've got back so far, I've always appreciated it. It's a humbling experience. So I always want to let everybody know I'm always humble, more so for my kids to be able to share something like that. And for so many people to read and say, I can relate to that. I love to see that a father is putting that out there. Those are the humbling things about these books that I wrote have done for me. Just to be able to say that I did something. And I tell anybody, if you have a thought process and you want to do something, go do it. I mean, the only person that's going to
absolutely.
stop you is you. I mean, you may not go the traditional way. We know how the world works right now. There's so many ways that you can make a book, produce a book, publish a book. So many ways now you have people who now want to be chefs, having truck venues and things of that nature. So if there's a will, there's a way. Just don't let yourself block yourself is always my thing I would tell anybody.
If you think it, you can achieve it. Absolutely. And that's been my motto for so many years. And I'm so glad to sit here and speak with you this morning, Dr. Kelvin Smith, the author of Daddy Moments 1, 2, and 3, and his latest book, Daddy Moments 3, the Twins Edition. It's available, all of them are available on Amazon. And thank you so much again, Dr. Smith, for sharing your time with us here on It's the Heart Work, People, Passion, and Purpose, because we know that being a father, being a parent, period, is some of the most heartfelt work that we can do, because it's an extension of us and it is our legacy. So again, thank you for sharing with our audience, and thank you for sharing with us on It's the Heart Work, People, Passion, and Purpose podcast. And remember to enjoy the journey, because someone wishes they were in your shoes.